Gardening friends, going live with Keith Edwards this morning to answer some of your submitted questions about gardening. So I'm just going to try and join Keith in. Just hang in there. Just trying to connect. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Joe. How are you, darling?
Good, thanks, Keith. How are you?
Yeah, really well, thanks. Really, really good.
Oh, well, thanks for making the time to meet with me.
That's all right.
I had a little post out last week just seeking if anyone had questions about gardening. A lot of gardeners new to gardening follow us, so sometimes feel a little bit lost. So it was just an opportunity to ask questions and we can get some of them answered.
Okay, do my best.
Absolutely, 40 years of experience. And I just think, actually, it clicked in the other day because I turned 40 last year. Like, you've been gardening my whole life.
And
like, it's a
bit
just,
more.
and more. So, a wealth of knowledge. And so, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
I wanted to also mention, like, the go-to point is Muddy Boots podcast. You have episodes that come out every Tuesday.
Yes.
And I only probably discovered Muddy Boots maybe like 4 months ago. And so I've actually gone back to old episodes because, you know, they're all listed there, you know, on Spotify. So sometimes if I've got a question, I'll go there first as well because you've got different topics.
Yeah.
So I would suggest people, if they're feeling a bit lost, you know, go back to an old episode and have a little look. And you also have like monthly questions as well. You can submit questions for your podcast.
Yes. Yeah, so we get quite a lot of questions coming. I mean, enough to fill a session, which is terrific. And you know, people have got to understand that there's no such thing as a dumb question. There isn't.
Exactly.
No?
You got to, yeah, and it's only a dumb question if you don't ask it.
That's right. If you don't ask it, you won't find any answers.
Yeah. So like, and you know me, I ask some of the questions, and it takes, you know, so long for something to sink in. Like, you know, we've spoken about certain topics again and again, and some of the things we'll discuss today we would have spoken about, but it sometimes just takes, you know, that sinking in time to hear it a couple of times and go, oh yeah, I've heard that makes sense. Or you might be up to that stage of your gardening process and it's like, oh yes, that's what I need to know now. So so I've got the questions, and I just thought we can go through like as many as we can without talking for hours type thing. People like quicker discussions. So let's get into it. So basically, like where to start. So say you're ordering garden beds. Before you even basically order, like to look at your positioning and the sun, because 6 to 8 hours is really what you need.
You do, yeah. Otherwise you're going to have long, leggy, slow vegetables. So they've got to get the maximum amount of sunlight in order to perform at their best. And then, of course, everything else has got to fall into place as well. So, but sunlight is the most important thing. And how you line your beds up is also quite important too, because you want to be maximising the winter sun. So the sun in winter will drop down about 30 degrees in the sky. So you want to make sure that your beds are going to be getting the most impact from that low-lying sun during the winter period. That's also quite important as well.
Yeah, and because the sun in my front yard, it kind of goes across there. So it's interesting, even though my beds, like they're all lined up like this, but there's a top end that gets more sun, and the veggies in the top end of the veggie bed grow faster. So it's nearly like I'm always having a succession naturally because the way that the sun's hitting just on the bed.
Yeah, and that's quite right. If you wanted to level that out, the beds maybe should have been aligned in an east-west rather than a north-south alignment. So you're getting the maximum amount of exposure. You know, I mean that applies to everything. You know, when you're designing a garden, for instance, you know you want to make sure that you're maximising the amount of sunlight that's there in the middle of winter for, you know, those winter growing plants. So yeah, very important that you look at that. And you just go out there at various times of the day and just have a look just where the sun's hitting and make your beds to those
And
positions. Yep.
even I was thinking like when your beds arrive, you could just sit them where you think you might have it, and like
Yes.
I said, watch where it goes, and then you go, oh no, I might need to move it a foot a bit more that way, or like before you fill them, because once they're filled, that's where they stay.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, that's a very good point, Joe. And the other thing too that it's very important is that you have enough space that goes between those beds to enable you to get a wheelbarrow between them for bringing produce or new compost or something else. You don't want it too tight that it becomes awkward to get around. So always work on that basis. So in your situation with the galvanized tanks, it's great to be able to lay them out and just walk around them, just observe them before you start filling them up, because the filling up process is a long, hard process.
It's the
You've got a
trickiest,
lot of you've
yeah,
got a lot of product to get into those beds to fill them up.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I didn't click in about how vital the sun is. So in my backyard, I actually have quite a number of garden beds that get shade. So there are some veggies like leafy greens you can grow
Yes.
if you're just not going to get that 6 to 8 hours.
Yeah, lettuce will do all right without being in full sun. A lot of Asian vegetables will do very well, particularly coriander. If you use coriander a lot, those beds would be great for putting that sort of crop in there. Mustard greens, these sorts of things will grow with a less light than say things like carrots and beetroot and tomatoes in particular. They need a lot more full sun to develop them and get them going quickly.
Yeah, and last year, because this is my first winter that I've actually got veggies in my front yard, my beds in the front yard. Last year, I did attempt to grow my winter veggies in the backyard because at that stage, that's just where my beds were. And the broccoli did grow. It just took a lot longer.
Yeah.
Like it took nearly 6 months to get some broccoli happening. I mean, it still worked, but just making that decision to have them in my front yard where I get the sun has been a game changer
Yep.
for me.
Yep. Spot on.
Yeah. So once you've worked out your positioning, and then it comes up to filling them. So you did a great post. It was like a real eye opener this week about like just choosing that right soil, and that potentially it may look good, but it may not be. Like, and so you did your pH test, and it was like up to 8.5, nearly 9.
Yeah.
So I think this is like the biggest issue, I think, across like all states, everywhere, is just trying to find the right soil to fill your beds with.
And that's why that pH test is the best bit of tool that you'll ever buy, is to go out and buy one of those, and then just go to your local suppliers and have a look what they've got. Just grab a sample. You only need a small bag to actually do a test on them. But while you're there, have a look at the actual product that they're trying to sell you. Make sure that it's not full of rubbish. I mean, as I said in mine, one of my beds, which I put up over during the COVID breakdown, I had to rely on the delivery of the product. It was supposed to be totally organic, and it was full of everything. Stones, plastic, glass, the works. And I remember my son, my middle boy, Brian, coming one day. He's an environmental scientist. And he just looked at the bed and he just shook his head and he said, Dad, he said, if I came across that on a commercial site, that would have to go into landfill.
Yeah.
And the pH, that's landfill. That's not supposed to be used. And unfortunately, we've created this monster by ourselves because we've got so many people with green bins that are just chucking all sorts of stuff in there. There's a bit of plastic, a bit of glass. I'll chuck that anyway. It's only going into landfill. But no, it's not. It's going out to these other companies that are turning this into compost. Or for a vegetable growing medium, and it is just wrong because the pH is just totally not there. They're not letting it aerate and letting the microbes and the fungi and all that sort of stuff develop properly. So, it's one of the worst things you can actually do is going and buying that stuff without taking a pH test and going and observing what you're actually buying.
Absolutely, because initially when you're setting up your beds, you need a lot of soil. So you don't want to start off your beds buying all these bags. Like bags more is for topping up and replenishing before each crop. But initially you're going to need a huge volume of soil. So even I was even thinking the other day, like asking people where they've got it from, but not just rely on that information. Like someone might have recommended a local landscaper, but still do your own testing because they may not have
Absolutely.
like checked the pH, for
Yep.
example. So I think it's always going to be that ever evolving, trying to find the right soil. Because, like you said, yours was a little bit better than where it was a couple of years ago. Like even though it might be great today, it might be changed in a year's time. Like it might have a good reputation, but things may have changed. So do it every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, because when you go down to the nursery and you have a look at what they've got, that's not going to be the same product you're going to go down to in a month's time.
That's right.
They're going to have to be replenishing it. And I'm telling you now, those people don't care. All they're interested in is what's going out through that yard and the dollars they're making out of it. They don't give it. They don't care about it. I think I could have named and shamed this particular business, but I think it's far better for people to see and then understand that there are ways and means of looking after yourself for the products you actually buy. And that's with that pH test kit. Take it down, get some samples and try it out. In hindsight, if I was starting a garden bed today, and I'm lucky enough because I've got access to Clyde compost,
Yeah.
and I'm looking out my window now, and I've got 4 bags of compost I picked up, 4 different brands of bags of compost I picked up from the Big Green Warehouse yesterday, and I've done pH tests on all of them, and there's a bit of a variation in the composts.
Yeah.
But there's also a variation in what's in that compost. There's one there that has got synthetic fertilizers mixed in it. And they sell that as a great advantage. Well, if you're an organic farmer, you don't want that rubbish.
Yeah.
And there's no need for it. So I said, if I was starting again today, I would be using a good quality topsoil, and I would be mixing as much compost into that topsoil as I possibly could. But once again, I'd be looking at the supplier and the brand of the compost and making that choice as to which is the best for those particular beds. And as I said, I'm lucky enough that I've got access to Clyde compost. And because of Clyde compost, he's also got that lignite humate, which is brown coal. And if I had access to that product when I was setting up my first bed during COVID, and had that high pH, by adding the lignite humate, I can pull that pH down really, really quickly. I don't have to wait 6, 8, 10 weeks, for a chemical reaction such as creating sulfuric acid in the soil to bring the pH down. I could do it naturally with the lignite humate, but not everyone's got access to that,
Yeah.
So you just got to be smart and careful where and how you go about, getting your soil and your compost. That's all.
That's a good point. So if you were just in a situation you just have to use the best thing available to you, is then buying some of the bags that you would use for replenishing in that as well at the start, just to give it some better quality. Like, for example, I use Rocky Point because it's certified organic and it gives me that peace of mind. And its pH was, I think, 7 to 7.5.
Yeah, and that's fine.
But that's very expensive to start your garden beds with. So if you
is.
But you can add, if you're initially starting, you might go and get landscaping soil, but maybe also add some of that bagged compost as well. That's great. It's a shame that we have to do that, isn't it?
It is. It's wrong, and we're just the mugs in all this, love. We're just mugs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
we're getting clever, and we'll be doing pH tests, and we'll be checking things out.
Good.
So even if it looks great, do the test.
There you go.
So we've gone into position the garden beds, filling them up with quality soil as best you can.
And compost,
and compost. So some people are going to be planting different things because one of the questions that came through was about someone was planting an English. Do you say it boxes?
Yep, boxes.
Boxes.
Yep.
So when they ask for like the soil base, so what kind of soil do people use for different plants? Like, does it change then again?
No, look, it shouldn't, love. I've got to design people's gardens, and regardless of whether it's in one part of the state or another, or even overseas, I always specify that the soil has got to be treated with amendments, because it's those amendments that you put into the soil. And when I say amendments, I'm talking about compost as number one, and then things like rock dust is number two, and then the myco gold is number three. So they're three components that I always put on my specifications for garden beds or for landscaping beds or anything else, because you've got to set those gardens up to be successful and grow successfully. Because you go just dig a hole and stick a plant in and walk away. Well, you're gonna reap what you sowed. You're not going to get a good return on that. So it's very important that you put compost into the soil. Now, I did see this person talk about using Buxus for her garden bed, and I wouldn't be using Buxus sempervirens as a hedging plant in anyone's garden, because it's problematic. It stresses out, it browns off, it yellows off. It's just a plant that requires a certain regime in order to be effective. There is a far better box that looks almost exactly the same, and it is Korean box. So it is a different type of box. It's from Korea. It's Korean box. It's got a slightly more oval shaped leaf than the Buxus sempervirens, the English box. But when it's clipped and trimmed up, you would never pick it. But it is far hardier. It's a much hardier plant than the English box.
There you go.
So,
Julie, there's a good tip for you. Lucky we got that in. There we go. Yeah. So, and it's hard to know this stuff when something looks great and you think, oh, I'll plant that. But that marigold, how do you say it? The powder. What's the powder?
It's called myco gold.
Myco gold, because I've got that too. So if I'm doing any plants in my garden beds, you put it like a teaspoon down underneath it. Yeah. Sorry, it's a bit busy going on the screen.
I don't use myco gold in my vegetable garden.
No, it's more
right? I just rely on the compost, because most of the plants in vegetables are you classify as annuals.
Okay.
So as long as they've got plenty of food, they're going to grow and thrive. The ones that I do specify using myco gold, which is a fungal spore, is when people are digging a hole to put a tree or a shrub in. Then it goes into the bottom of the hole of that, and then it has a symbiotic relationship with the plant. So that's how I specify it in all my garden. I don't use it in the vegetable patch.
Yeah, but some people buy like our circles, and they'll use like that as a basis for a tree or a bush, like as a bit of a decorative around a tree, or so that she could use that to help establish.
Yeah, you can, and even if you've got existing plants, you can actually just water it in. Just a couple of teaspoons in a watering can, and just go and put it around the plants.
Yeah, great.
But still, if you had a prepping fork where you could get some holes into the ground, tip it down the holes. Yeah, and that'll it'll benefit those plants just enormously.
And the prepping fork is very fun to use. I've been enjoying that.
Great. It's a great one, isn't it?
It is. Okay, so if you've got your soil in, and obviously you'll put in your rock dust, and you got your good soil and soil worm castings, for example. So all that's in there, and so you put a mulch on top, and you often use flung dung. Now, is this the same for a wicking bed? So
yes, it is.
You have to be mindful, because you want your soil to be able to wick, and you don't want it to be compacted.
No. And the flung dung's not going to affect your wicking bed, and the actual material that's in your wicking bed is not going to be affected by that wicking system. But the reason that I would put flung dung over a wicking bed system is that if you're sowing seedlings into that wicking bed, depending on the depth of your wicking bed, there's no available moisture at the very top, depending on the height of the beds. So you've got to apply the moisture at the top to keep that top area wetted, so that the roots can actually grow down into that wicking area.
Yeah, to get established.
And the same thing applies with if you're sowing seeds into a wicking bed. You've got to make sure that that's regularly watered, and the flung dung will act as a good mulch to maintain that moisture level in there.
Yeah, good
until
point.
those plants can get deep enough to hit that wicking system.
Great. And the soil that you would use would be the same as what you're doing in a standard one, or do you
Yeah.
have you? Yeah.
No, as long as you've got the scoria base that becomes your well at the bottom, and then a geofabric over the top of that, and then you have your quality soil mix and compost and everything else mixed through that.
Yeah, and some people make like up a loam mix as well, and even for their garden beds, like a loam, and then they get like a loam base and add manure and add all the
Yep.
components to it. Because can you actually buy loam like soil on its own and then make up your own concoction
Yeah,
of
and that's
soil?
you can do that, and that's it. And if you're using raised beds, then that's a great way of doing it. When we say a loam soil is a soil that has got lots and lots of fines in it. So it's not a clay, but it's got lots and lots of fines in it. A sandy soil, for instance, is made up of just nearly all mineral matter and very, 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 very little bits of organic matter in it. So you've got to really look at it. So if you've got a sandy soil, you've got to add a lot more compost to a sandy soil than say if you had a loam soil. Now, when it comes to if you're just going to have vegetable gardens in the ground, then I don't suggest you import any sort of soil whatsoever. Work with the soil you've got. So add
Mm.
lots and lots of organic matter to it, and everything will be fine on that particular basis.
Yeah,
All
so
right?
that's another option. If you can't find good soil, potentially you make up your
Yep.
own concoction using
Make up
loam
your own.
soil.
Yep.
And people do that. A lot
For
of
sure.
our customers do that because they're on farms and they can get their hands on loam and then they get the manure in and make up their
Mix
own.
it
So
all up.
that's another, yeah,
Beautiful.
good strategy.
Beautiful.
So now, so say you've got your soil, you're following, the seasons, planning to what to plant and when,
Mm-hmm.
follow the moon calendar.
Yep.
So then you do all that good stuff and your plants start to grow. And so we had quite a few questions come through about naturally stopping the bugs and the
Mm-hmm.
pests. So what's your advice about pests and naturally?
Okay. Well, there's all
Stop?
sorts of pests, and it depends
Yes.
on what you classify
And
as a
this
pest.
might be a video on its own
Yeah.
because it's a
Um,
huge topic.
I, I've got in my backyard right at the very moment. I have got every single bed out there is under netting,
Yeah.
and the reason it's under netting is because we've got that stinking rotten white butterfly that is around. As soon as the temperature gets to 20 degrees Celsius, they're out, and if there's a bit of sunlight, they're out. They're out in mass. Now,
Yeah.
and because I'm growing brassicas at the moment, so I've got a lot of Brussels sprouts. I've got, my cabbages, my collies. I've got, all the broccolini and this sort of stuff happening now. I've got to keep those bloody butterflies off them. So in my shed, I have a container full of eco neem, and very soon I'm going to mix eco oil into the eco neem because the temperatures are dropping now down here in Victoria, and I can use both of those products. So eco neem is the safest product that you will ever come across for use in controlling chewing and sucking insects. It is the best product there is. Now I've had some people come to me and say, "Oh, I've just gone and bought a bottle of eco neem, and I've read the label and it says it's not for human consumption, not to be sprayed." And so I say to these people, "Listen, put that product away in your shed, and then go online and order the same product from New Zealand, where it's been tested in New Zealand and accepted, and you can use it on all your crops. If you import it from New Zealand, you can use it on anything because it tells you on the label you can."
Yeah.
And they say, "Well, why is that?" And I said, "Well, because the company that started off with EcoNeem, which is a company called OCP, and that stands for Organic Crop Protectants, 3 words, Organic Crop Protectants. They came up with EcoNeem, and the neem is derived from the seed of the neem tree, and that extract is then infused into sesame oil. So it's totally organic. So when they tried to release that for use on vegetables, the FDA or the organisation said, "Oh, well, we'll do it for you, but we need money to test it." So they spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars and still got nowhere. So OCP was bought out by Yates, and at this stage, Yates had turned around and thumbed their nose at these crowds and said, "Well, we're producing it all and selling it all around the world, and this is the only country in the world that you don't recognise it for use on crops, and it is just crap.
Yeah, and
And yet,
it's actually labelled certified organic as well.
yeah, it is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So because I use so much of Eco Neem, I have a friend who is a certified organic vegetable grower. So he sells at all these markets all the way around the state. I spoke with him about it, and he said, Keith, go and buy a product called Azamax, Azamax, in bulk. So I bought a 5 litre container of that. And on the packet of that, it says certified for use as an organic input. It is exactly the same product, but it's a commercial one.
Yeah, it is. It's like, yeah. And you hear about like people having to go through a lot of red tape about getting the certified organic, so people just don't even worry about even like going for that certification.
No, but the stupid part about it is that here I can go and buy a organic vegetable soil mix that has got a pH exceeding 9, which is landfill.
Yeah.
And I can use that in my garden, but I can't go and use a certified or an organic product like Eco Neem. Well, not supposedly.
It's crazy.
It's just rubbish.
Yeah, it is. It's just
so frustrating.
It's so frustrating, and just no consistency, is it? And these people doing amazing things with certified organic, and they're doing all the steps, and then they're the ones that are finding it hard to promote properly. Yeah, like to get the message out.
So
I
just say, if you're concerned about it, go and buy it from New Zealand.
Yeah, that's right.
Same
or
product,
just trust what you're
bottle.
saying. Trust what you're saying, and just buy it here in Australia.
Yeah.
So Eco Neem, and look, I did make an error in summer. I mixed mine with Eco Oil and I fried some plants. So just make sure not to put the oil in it in hot.
Exactly.
And don't do it when do it earlier in the morning.
Or do it late
with the oil
at night.
Yeah. So what when?
Yep. So now the things are starting to cool down, you can actually start to put that eco oil in there. And what the eco oil does is that it is an instant effect on things like aphids. So when you spray it over existing aphids you've got there, it puts a seal over them, an oily seal over them, and they can't breathe, so they die.
Yeah.
Whereas the Eco Neem is a substance that when it's sprayed on the leaves, and if you do it on a regular basis, it becomes somewhat systemic. Then whatever eats and sucks that dies. All right, so it's a backup for the eco oil.
So can I ask, what's the type of temperature to when you can?
I wouldn't be spraying eco oil on anything over say 23, 24 degrees. So anything below 23, 22 degrees in the morning and the evening, you haven't got a problem.
Okay, there you go. Because I have fried plants from doing it on a hot day.
And everyone's got a 5 litre sprayer, and it's very, very simple. It's 25 mil of eco oil into 5 litres of water, and it's 12 mil of Eco Neem into that same container, and you mix it up. And as I said, I've got a 5 litre container sitting in the shed where it just sits there, and pull it out when I need it. Just give it a quick shake, make sure it's all mixed through it, and go out and spray.
Yeah, beautiful. So netting and then Eco Neem and Eco Oil in the cooler days. So they're the main things you use. You don't use any other, like, because you've done with Pests, I know you've made up little contraptions with the soy sauce and things like that. So there are going to be some things that won't work with the Eco Neem. Yeah,
well, that's right. I mean, things like earwigs are some of the worst, and slugs and snails.
Yeah,
even slaters can be problematic in the garden. Not all the time, but if they're in large numbers they can be a real problem. So those little containers that I make up, I buy the little plastic containers from Aldi. I've just burned some holes through the sides, a little bit of oil in the bottom, and the attractant is a little bit of soy sauce, and they just crawl in and just get stuck in the oil, and they all drown. And that's another great way of controlling them. If I've got problems with snails, I use a particular snail bait which is called Protectus. So you can, if you go online, you can find this particular product, and it is safe for pets and fish and all this sort of stuff. They use a medicinal grade iron in their mix rather than a cheap form. So it's really good. And you don't put it out there, so thickly that you can see it. It's just very, very gently spread. So that's another great product. But you go online, there's a company called Pests that actually have that particular product, and they'll post it around anywhere in Australia. So it's a really good product.
Perfect.
Right?
That's so a couple of people, because that's obviously one of our biggest things is you get all these veggies going in and the pests come. So it's like one of the biggest challenges of gardening is pests.
Yeah, and there's nothing worse.
Yeah, and birds as well. They think it's fun to pick out my seedlings. They think it's a great old time. So I use netting in my backyard for birds in particular because they're having a party out there.
Absolutely.
Someone did ask how to kill mint organically, and also I think you say, is it onion twitch grass? Is that it?
Okay. So mint is a rhizome, so it's a creeping root system that goes through the soil and pops up wherever it likes, wherever it's getting access to plenty of moisture. The twitch grass or the onion grass is a bulb.
Yes.
And you have a real problem killing bulbs because they are actually growing on the energy they stored last year. So if you kill what's above the surface now, they'll only regenerate next year because they've got that stored energy. But in that sort of a situation, I would strongly suggest that rather than thinking about using a herbicide of any sort, that if you are really fair dinkum about doing this control in an organic way, then there is a product that looks like weed mat, but it is not. It looks like weed mat. It is called Weed Gunnel, Gunnel, and it is from a company up in Queensland. And all you do is you work out whatever size you need, and then ring them up, and they'll have it delivered in a few days to your front doorstep. And how it works is that it's a smothering process. So if you've got lots of weeds and stuff and you want to clear that out, then you lay the weed gunnel out over the top of it and then put a mulch over it. And then when you want to, then leave it there, for a period of time. But if you want to start putting plants in, all you need to do is pull the mulch back, and with a pair of with a sharp knife, cut an X, and then peel it back, dig a hole, put your plant in, and then fold that weed gunnel back over it. Now, weed gunnel is certified as an organic input, so it's perfectly safe to use, and it will last between say 7 and 9 years, and then it breaks down.
Yeah. Okay. So could you use that? So when you set up a garden bed, often we say to put cardboard down the bottom. Could you use that?
Yeah, I would be using cardboard. I'd be using the weed gunnel's fine because cardboard can break down fairly quickly if it gets lots of access to moisture and the soil. Yeah. And then if you've got grasses like kikuyu or twitch grass or whatever else, it can come up through that pretty easily.
Well, yes, and as you know, my front yard, that's where I decided to have my veggie patch, and I didn't prepare much besides just doing the cardboard, and now I'm starting to get grass come up through my garden bed, which I'm always plucking out. So that mat sounds like would have been a better
Weed gunnel
option.
is brilliant. It would be brilliant because it's going to be there for 7 to 9 years.
Yes.
Nothing's going to be alive under that.
Yeah. Perfect.
Microbes.
Yeah, perfect. So they're the main questions that came through.
Yep.
And there's just a lot of people starting out, so I think that's helped a lot. Like we could talk for hours, and there's so many of the things we spoke about we could dive into deeper, but I think that's enough for today. And then if anything comes out of it, then we'll go through more videos. No worries. Well, thanks so much, Keith. That's great. And then if anyone's got questions, we just love to cover them. But like I said at the start of the video, Muddy Boots podcast is really it's got so much information, and it's got basically all their previous episodes is like a library. You can just go through and choose a topic that you want to learn more about and listen to that podcast. But it's out every Tuesday.
Fantastic, and more people listen to us. That's fantastic. We're sitting around at number 1, which is just terrific, and we go to 46 countries around the world.
It's fantastic.
So that's all right too.
I look forward to it coming out every week going, what are we going to learn this week? We've just had a question pop through. What do you recommend for companion planting?
A book. Companion planting. Look, there's been more books written about companion planting than you can poke a stick at. I would suggest you go to your local library and have a look at what they've got there, or go on and Google them and have a look to see one that is relevant for Australian conditions, and there's quite a few of those that are available. So
I love that you've just said that. In the library in Forbes, he's got a brilliant gardening section. It's got hundreds of books on gardening.
Brilliant.
Like, yeah, you don't need to go out and spend a lot of money on these things. Like, go to your library first.
Yeah.
Yeah, and do some Googling.
Google
But
it.
I'll touch base with you after this, lovely, and just show you what I've used as
All
well.
right.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Thanks,
All right,
Keith.
darling.
Thanks so
See you
much.
later.
Thanks,
Bye-bye,
everyone.
everyone.
We'll talk soon.
Okay.
Okay,
Bye.
bye. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.